I flinched and pulled my hand back on reflex, not because I was embarrassed in front of Callan, but because a fear that had followed me for years had suddenly come rushing back. Ryan was standing a few meters away, still holding a cup of hot chocolate. He looked at me, then looked at Callan. His eyes were full of surprise. "Nash, I didn't know you were coming to the festival too." I tried to keep my voice normal. "Yeah, Callan invited me." Ryan smiled. "Nice. The whole group's been betting on when you'd finally go out after leaving the hospital." Callan politely offered his right hand. "Hi, I'm Callan." Ryan shook his hand. "Ryan. I'm in the architecture department with Nash." The three of us stood there talking for a few more minutes. Ryan talked about his project. Professor Smith. Next week's presentation. The atmosphere was completely normal. And yet, I kept feeling like Ryan was watching the two of us more than he needed to. By the time Ryan said goodbye, Callan quietly asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah." But I knew I'd just lied. That night, I could barely focus on studying. Every time I remembered the look in Ryan's eyes, my heart would race. I didn't know how much he'd seen. I didn't even know what exactly I was afraid of. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. "Callan, I'm sorry." I called him right away. "Why are you sorry?" "I think I made things awkward for you." "No. I saw you pull your hand away." I went quiet. The other end of the line went quiet too. Finally, I spoke up. "It wasn't because of you." "I know." Callan's voice was very soft. "It's because you're not ready yet." I closed my eyes. "Yeah. I'm sorry. Now it's your turn to apologize?" "I should have been braver." "Nash." Callan said my name very slowly. "Listen to me. You don't owe anyone the obligation to come out. Not today. Not next week. Not ever if you're not ready. I like you. I don't like forcing you." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm scared." "I know. I'm scared people will look at me differently." "I know. I'm scared my parents will be disappointed." "I know that too. I'm also scared." I paused. "That you'll get tired of waiting." On the other end, Callan let out a soft laugh. "It took me 3 years to dare to be honest with myself. A few more months waiting for you is nothing." For the first time in years, I felt like someone truly understood my fear. 2 days later, the misunderstanding I'd been worried about finally happened. After class, Ryan called me over. "Nash, what's up? Can we talk privately?" We stood out in the hallway of the architecture department. Ryan leaned against the railing. He hesitated for a few seconds before asking, "You and Callan, are you dating?" My heart nearly stopped. I looked at him. I didn't know how to answer. Ryan quickly waved his hands. "Hey, if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. I was just asking. Because at the festival, the way you two looked at each other, it didn't look like friends." I lowered my head. There was a long silence. Finally, I just said, "I don't know yet." That wasn't exactly a lie, because at that point, we still hadn't officially called each other boyfriends. Ryan nodded. "I get it." He smiled. "Nash, there's something you don't know. Back in freshman year, my older brother came out too." I looked up. Ryan went on. "He was really scared at first, but everything turned out fine. I just want to say, if what you're worried about is my reaction, you don't need to be." I stared at Ryan, stunned. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Ryan gave my shoulder a light punch. "I just need you to promise me something." "Promise what?" "Next time, don't pull an all-nighter on a project again." I burst out laughing. "You still remember that?" "The whole department remembers." We laughed together. In that moment, a huge weight I'd been carrying seemed to lift. Maybe I'd been scaring myself more than the reality warranted. That afternoon, I told Callan everything. He listened closely. At the end, he finally asked, "So, how do you feel?" "I feel like I just wasted 2 years being scared." Callan nodded. "People are like that. They build their own prison in their head." Then forget the door was never locked. I looked at him. Where'd you learn that line? Made it up myself. You're really something. I know. Way too confident. That's a strength. We laughed together. Before we parted, Callan suddenly stopped. Nash. I have a proposal. What? This Saturday. I'll take you back to Spokane. I was surprised. To your place. Yeah. My parents want to meet my hospital roommate. My eyes went wide. That fast. My mom's curious. She said, the guy who's got our son smiling that much must be pretty special. My face went hot. I'm not ready to meet parents. Callan laughed. I told her you're a friend. Really? Really? I wouldn't dare lie to my mom. I breathed a sigh of relief. Okay. This weekend then. This weekend. We bumped fists like it was a promise. Neither of us knew. That trip would completely change the two of us. Because in Callan's own home, for the first time, I would understand what it meant for a family to accept their son unconditionally. And it was there too, that I would start asking myself whether I'd ever have the courage to tell my own parents the truth. Saturday came faster than I expected. All week, I was both looking forward to it and anxious. This wasn't the first time I'd been to a classmate's house. But it was the first time I'd been to the house of a guy I liked. That difference made everything feel important. I changed my shirt 3 times. Jake sat on the couch eating cereal, watching me. Are you going to a job interview or something? I looked at myself in the mirror. Don't know what to wear. Oliver poked his head out from the kitchen. Does he like you for the shirt or for who you are? Probably who I am. Then it doesn't matter what you wear. Jake smirked. If he doesn't like you, dressing well won't help. If he does like you, you'll look good even in a hoodie. I laughed. Thanks. Don't thank me. Jake pointed at the door. Go. Don't keep him waiting. Right at 9. A dark blue SUV pulled up in front of the apartment. Callan got out. His cast was off, replaced by a wrist brace. Hey! Hey! We looked at each other for a few seconds. Then both laughed. You're healing fast. I've been doing physical therapy religiously. I can tell. I can even hold the wheel now. Don't brag. I'm going to brag. I shook my head. Somehow, just hearing his voice, all my tension melted away. Spokane was almost a 3-hour drive from campus. The road cut through forests turning shades of orange and gold. Callan put on an indie playlist. It happened to be my kind of music too. I guessed right. Guessed what? That you'd like this song. Why? Because of the lyrics. I listened closely. A line came on. Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a person. I instinctively turned to look at Callan. He stayed focused on driving, but the corner of his mouth curved up slightly. I picked this song on purpose. I know. I'm pretty smooth. No. It's obvious. He laughed loudly. Around noon, we arrived. Callan's family home sat in a quiet neighborhood. There was a wide lawn, a huge maple tree out front, and a wooden porch swing. A brown-haired woman came out first. She hugged Callan. Oh my goodness. Let me see that arm. Mom. I'm fine. You always say you're fine. She checked his wrist as if Callan were still 10 years old. I stood beside them, smiling. Then she turned to me. You must be Nash? Yes, ma'am. She hugged me too. I'm so happy to meet you. I stood frozen for a few seconds, then awkwardly hugged her back. In my house, my family didn't have a habit of hugging. At least not often. A tall man came out from the garage. Is this Nash? Yes, sir. He smiled. Thank you for looking out for Callan in the hospital. We looked out for each other. He patted my shoulder. Good. That was the entire welcome. No one asked about grades. No one asked what my family did for a living. No one judged. It was simply a welcome. Lunch went by amid nonstop laughter. Callan's mom told all sorts of stories from his childhood. When he was 8, he climbed a tree, then got stuck. Callan put his hand over his forehead. Mom, son, that was 20 years ago. I still remember. His dad laughed. He even cried. I didn't cry. You did. It was dust in my eyes. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I couldn't believe the guy who was always so confident in front of me had once gotten stuck in a tree. After the meal, Callan led me out to the backyard. There was a long bench overlooking a small pond. So, I like your family. Really? Yeah. Everyone's so. I searched for the word. Warm. Callan looked out at the pond. My family's not perfect. My parents used to fight too. My sister and I fought constantly. But there's one thing. What? We always knew. No matter what happened, family was always a place to come back to. I went quiet. A strange feeling suddenly rose up inside me. Not jealousy, but longing. That afternoon, Callan's mom called us both into the kitchen to help make apple pie. I'd never made a pie before. She patiently walked me through every step. Callan kept messing around. You cut the apples. Hey, stop sneaking bites. I'm just tasting it. You've tasted the 5th apple already. I laughed so hard I nearly knocked over the flour. She turned and looked at me. Nash. Yes. Thank you. For what? Ever since the accident. I haven't seen Callan this happy. I paused for a moment. She smiled very gently. He laughs more. Talks more. And he says your name a lot. I hadn't even answered when Callan spoke up from behind. Mom. Yes. Don't make Nash uncomfortable. I'm just telling the truth. He blushed. I blushed too. She smiled like she was very pleased with herself. That night, after dinner, Callan's dad invited us to sit out on the porch and have tea. An early winter breeze blew gently. He looked at the two of us. The hospital. That's where you two met, right? Yes. Life's strange. He smiled. Sometimes the worst thing that happens leads you to the best thing. I went still. I didn't know why. I kept feeling like he was saying more than his words let on. And when I happened to glance over, Callan was looking at me too. His eyes were so gentle that, for the first time, I no longer doubted my own feelings. I had fallen in love with Callan. Not because he always made me laugh. Not because he was handsome. Not even because he treated me well. But because, next to him, I felt like I could be myself. A feeling I hadn't had with anyone in the 20 years before that. That night, I stayed over at Callan's house. His room was on the 2nd floor, looking straight out over the pond behind the house. The bookshelf was full of machine models. Basketball medals hung neatly on the wall. Beside them were family photos, birthday photos, Christmas photos, photos of the whole family camping. I looked slowly at each one. Callan came in after his shower, carrying 2 mugs of hot cocoa. Here. Thanks. He handed me a mug, then sat down on the floor, leaning back against the bed frame. I still can't believe it. What? Last week, we were still lying in the hospital. And now, you're in my room. I laughed. It really did happen fast. Does it feel strange to you? Yeah. But the good kind of strange. Callan nodded. Same for me. After a moment of silence, I picked up a framed photo. In it, Callan looked about 16 wearing a basketball uniform. Beside him was a much younger kid. Is this your little brother? No. My sister. I looked closer. Sorry. Her hair's so short. Callan laughed. She'll love hearing you say that. Where's your sister now? She's in college in Boston. Doesn't come home much. We still video call every week. I set the frame down. Your family's really close. Yeah. He looked at me. What about you? I froze. That was the question I always avoided. My parents aren't bad. It's just, we're not good at showing affection. Ever since I was little, my family rarely hugs, rarely says, I love you. Even when I got good grades, my dad would just nod. My mom would just say, good job. I know they love me. But sometimes, I still wish I could hear more than that. Callan didn't say anything. He just shifted a little closer. The distance between us was now less than half a meter. I think, he said quietly, someday, your parents are going to surprise you. I'm not sure. I am. Why? Because they raised you. I believe whoever raised someone this good can't be bad people. I lowered my head. Whether it was the heat from the cocoa or the words themselves, I didn't know. My eyes suddenly stung. Sunday morning, before we left for school, Callan's mom stuffed the trunk full of containers of food. That's too much, Callan groaned. Mom, we're only 3 hours away. 3 hours is still far. She turned to me. Nash, if the food at school isn't good, just come here. What? Consider it your home too. I froze. I didn't know how to respond. Finally, I just smiled. Thank you, ma'am. That was the first time in a very long while I'd heard someone tell me, consider it your home. Such a simple sentence. But it left my chest strangely warm. On the drive back to school, the car moved very slowly. Not because of traffic, but because Callan deliberately chose the route along the lake. Nice view, he explained. I knew. He just wanted to stretch this time out a little longer. I have something I want to ask, he said. Ask away. If I officially asked you to be my boyfriend, what would you say? My heart started racing again. I thought we already did that at the coffee shop. Not yet. He shook his head. That was just a date. I want to ask for real. The car pulled over at a scenic overlook. Ahead of us was a wide lake. The water was so clear it reflected the entire sky. Callan turned off the engine, turned to face me fully. Nash, I know. We've only known each other a short while. I know. You still have a lot to worry about. I know that too. But, he took a deep breath. I don't want to wait until everything's perfect. Because life is never going to be perfect. So, he smiled. Will you be my boyfriend? Every sound seemed to disappear. Only the wind remained, the rustle of maple leaves, and the sound of my own heart, pounding clearly. I looked at the guy in front of me, the one who'd come into my life in the strangest way possible. The one who'd turned a hospital into the most beautiful place in my memories at 20. The one who was always patient, always gentle, always willing to wait for me. I smiled, then nodded. Yes, just one word. But Callan's eyes lit up instantly. Really? Are you going to let me change my mind? No. He smiled so wide his eyes crinkled. Absolutely not. I laughed. This time, it was me who reached out first and took his hand. Our fingers intertwined. Warm. Just right. As if they'd belonged together from the start. From today, I said. You're my boyfriend. Callan squeezed my hand gently. And you are the best thing that ever came out of my ridiculous accident. Don't forget. It all started because of Duke, the golden retriever. He burst out laughing. Right? Maybe I should thank him. I shook my head. If we ever see him again, make sure he doesn't knock you over a second time. No promises. We laughed together. The car rolled on toward the university. Neither of us knew that becoming boyfriends was only a new chapter, because after graduation, when each of us stepped into our own careers, distance, work pressure, choices about the future, would become the biggest test yet for the love between two guys who'd first met in 2 hospital beds side by side. Coming back to campus as Callan's boyfriend made everything feel brand new. Not because campus itself had changed, but because every familiar corner was now tied to a new memory. The coffee shop across from the library, the stone bench by the pond, the maple-lined path leading to the engineering building. All of them became places where just walking past would make me think of his smile. But the thing that surprised me most was that we agreed not to rush into making our relationship public. Not out of shame, but because we both wanted things to unfold naturally. If one day you want to hold my hand in the middle of the quad, Callan once said, we'll do it. If that day hasn't come yet, I'll wait too. Just those words alone were enough to tell me I'd chosen the right person. The last months of college flew by faster than any semester before. During the day, I buried myself in my thesis project. Callan was busy with a research project in the lab and physical therapy to get his form back. In the evenings, we spent almost all our time together. Some nights it was just studying together in the library. Some nights it was buying 2 tacos and sitting on the dorm steps. Some nights it was driving out to the edge of town just to watch the sunset. The strange thing was, I no longer pulled all-nighters like before. Anytime he saw me about to work until 3 or 4 in the morning, Callan would call. Nash. What time is it? Midnight. Go to sleep. I still have a drawing to finish. Finish it tomorrow. There's no time. I'll come over. What? Bring food. Sit with you. Until you agree to rest. And he really did. One time, Callan came over to my apartment with his pillow in hand. Sat on the couch. Read a book. Waited for me to finish my drawing. At exactly 1 in the morning, he closed the book. Time's up. No. I'm not done. You're done. I'm not. Callan stood up and gently closed my laptop. Nash, you promised you wouldn't let yourself pass out again. I still remember. So do I. I looked at him. Finally, I just smiled. Fine. Going to bed. Spring of senior year. One afternoon after class, I got an email from an architecture firm in Seattle. I'd been invited to interview. It was the company I'd always dreamed of working for. I ran straight over to the engineering building to find Callan. He'd just stepped out of the lab. I got a first-round interview. I practically shouted. Callan pulled me into a hug right there in the hallway. See, I told you you'd make it. I haven't even interviewed yet. You'll get it too. So confident? I'm your boyfriend. I have the right to be. I laughed out loud. There was just one thing. That joy quickly came with another worry. Seattle, while the company Callan was aiming for, was in Boston. That night we sat by the pond on campus. What if, I said, you end up in Boston, and I'm in Seattle? Then what? Callan picked up a pebble, threw it into the water. I'll get on a plane. What? 3 hours. I can handle that. I'm serious. So am I. I don't want long distance. Neither do I. But, he looked at me, I want even less for either of us to give up our dreams. I lowered my head. That was the thing I loved most about Callan. He had never once made me choose between love and the future. Graduation came in early summer. All the students wore black gowns, square caps. The quad was packed. My parents came up from Portland. Callan's family was there too. After the ceremony, everyone took pictures together. While my parents were talking with a professor, Callan's mom pulled me aside. Now, can I ask you something? Yes, ma'am. You and Callan. You're dating, aren't you? I froze on the spot. You knew. She smiled warmly. What mother wouldn't know? From the way you two look at each other. From the way he says your name. I've suspected for a long time. My face flushed. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? She took my hand gently. You make him happy. That's all I care about. My eyes suddenly stung. I'd never imagined I'd hear those words from the mother of the person I loved. Right at that moment, Callan ran over. What are you two talking about? His mom winked. Secret. I hate that word. Good to know. She laughed and walked off. Callan looked at me suspiciously. What did my mom say? I'm not telling. Did she bribe you? Maybe. He sighed. Typical family. I laughed. Then, without thinking, I took his hand. This time, in the middle of the quad. In the middle of hundreds of students. In the middle of both our families. I didn't let go. And neither did Callan. We looked at each other. No words needed. That gentle squeeze of the hand alone was enough to stand in for every promise about the future. Because we both knew, after graduation, a new chapter of life was about to begin, and we would have to learn to love each other, no longer as 2 college students, but as 2 grown men stepping into careers, real life, and the first big choices of adulthood. After graduation, life changed faster than anything I could have imagined. I moved to Seattle to start work at an architecture firm. Callan got a job offer from a biotech company, also in Seattle. When he called to tell me, I went quiet for so long that Callan thought the call had dropped. "Nash, you still there?" I still couldn't find words, then finally burst out laughing. "You just made me worry for 2 whole weeks. Sorry. I wanted to be sure before I said anything." "What about Boston?" "I turned it down." "Why?" Callan laughed softly. "Because Seattle had a great opportunity too. Don't think I sacrificed anything for you. I chose it because it's really what I wanted." I breathed a sigh of relief. For the first time since graduating, the future no longer felt frightening. 3 months later, we rented a small apartment about 15 minutes drive from both our workplaces. On moving day, Jake and Oliver came to help too. Jake looked around the apartment and elbowed me. "Never would have thought. You and your old hospital roommate would actually make it here." Oliver laughed. "All because of one golden retriever." Callan threw up his hands. "Don't bring that up again. I'm going to sue Duke." The whole group cracked up. I looked around the apartment. Not big, not fancy, just a small living room, a balcony overlooking a row of trees, and 2 coffee mugs sitting on the kitchen counter. But to me, it was the first place that truly felt like home. Working life wasn't easy. Some weeks I stayed at the office until 9 at night. Callan was often out late too, because of his research project. We started to understand that love after college wasn't like love on campus. No more free afternoons. No more long summer breaks. No more just walking a few minutes to see each other. Instead, there were meetings, deadlines, pressure. One time I got home around 10, saw the kitchen light still on. Callan was asleep on the couch. On the table were 2 plates of pasta gone cold. I gently called out, "Callan." He opened his eyes. "You're home." "I'm sorry. I'm late again." He just smiled. "I'll heat it back up." "No." I held his hand. "Just sit with me for 5 minutes." We ate dinner at 10:30. The pasta had gone soft. The sauce wasn't as good as it had been fresh, but it was still one of the happiest meals I'd ever had. One weekend evening, while tidying the bookshelf, I accidentally knocked my old wallet to the floor. A slightly yellowed piece of paper fell out. Callan picked it up. "What's this?" I smiled. "Open it." He read it. It was the note he'd written me the day I left the hospital. "If one day you feel like you have to face the whole world, remember there's always a bed by the window that used to be a place where someone believed in you." Callan looked at me surprised. "You still kept it?" "Of course. I thought you'd have thrown it away. I still have the maple leaf too. And the ticket from our first movie. The Duke stuffed bear. And..." I opened a drawer, took out the hospital wristband. My name was still printed on it. Callan laughed. "You even kept that?" "Yeah." "Why?" I stepped closer, gently took his hand in mine. "Because if it weren't for that hospital, I never would have met the man of my life." Callan went quiet, then pulled me into a hug. This time it wasn't the awkward hug of 2 college kids. It was the hug of 2 people who had gone through illness, growing up, and building a life together. A year later, on the exact anniversary of the day we met, Callan told me to leave work early. He took me to Northbridge University Hospital. I looked at the familiar building and laughed. "Why are we back here?" "Follow me." We went up to the 7th floor. The hallway had barely changed. The smell of antiseptic was still the same. The lighting was still the same. Even the shared lounge at the end of the hall was still there. Callan stopped in front of our old room. The door was open. There were 2 new patients inside now. He didn't go in, just stood outside looking. "Remember every bit of it." He pulled a small velvet box out of his jacket pocket. Before I could even process it, Callan was already down on one knee. "Nash, a year ago, we were 2 strangers. Today, you're my family. So, will you marry me?" I laughed through tears. "You know what? You've always had a thing for choosing weird places. A hospital for a proposal? Yeah. I wanted to start right where it all began. I nodded. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Callan stood up, slid the ring onto my finger. Right at that moment, a nurse walked by, looked at us, then gasped. Wait a second. Aren't you two the ones who used to be in this room? Callan laughed loudly. That's right. I'm the guy who got knocked over by a golden retriever. The nurse covered her mouth, laughing. I remember now. I can't believe. You two actually ended up together. I looked at Callan, then looked at the hospital room behind us. There are places people just want to leave as fast as possible. But for me, it will always be the most beautiful place in the world. Because in a place that seemed to hold nothing but pain and worry, I met the man who would hold my hand for the rest of my life. And whenever anyone asks how we met, Callan always smiles and says, we used to be neighbors. Of course. Neighbors in a hospital.